The emergency klaxons screamed through the corridors of Nexus Station, their piercing wails cutting through the usual hum of alien conversations and mechanical systems. Dr. Zephyra's four hands moved with practiced precision as she prepared the trauma bay, her chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh medical lighting. As the head physician of the station's emergency ward, she had seen injuries from across the galaxy, Vorthan acid burns, crystalline shatter wounds, even the rare void touch syndrome that affected deep space miners. Nothing had prepared her for what came through those doors. The human was carried in by a team of 6 Korthak security officers, their massive frames straining under the weight. At first glance, Dr. Zephyra assumed they were transporting scrap metal from some industrial accident. The figure on the stretcher was so mangled, so twisted and broken, that it barely resembled anything that had once been alive. Chunks of debris were embedded throughout what she gradually realized was a body. Twisted metal shards protruded from every limb. The chest cavity appeared to have been crushed by something with tremendous force. "What happened?" she demanded as her medical team swarmed around the stretcher. "Mining accident on level 47, growled Sergeant Vox, his translator struggling with the guttural Korthak language. Human was working the deep extraction when a structural beam gave way, took out half the platform, found him under 3 tons of collapsed framework. Dr. Zephyra's compound eyes widened as she processed this information. 3 tons. She had seen Korthak warriors, beings whose bones were essentially organic steel, die from half that weight. Yet somehow the readings on her medical scanner showed life signs. Weak, erratic, but unmistakably present. "Get me a full biological scan," she ordered her assistant, Dr. Quillen, a nervous ethereal whose translucent skin flickered with anxiety. "And prepare the regeneration chamber. We're going to need." Dr. Quillen's voice trembled as he stared at the scanner readout. "These readings, they can't be correct." Zephyra snatched the device from his trembling hands. The display showed a 3-dimensional model of the human's body, highlighting the extent of the damage. Both legs were compound fractured in multiple places. 4 ribs were completely shattered, with fragments dangerously close to vital organs. The left arm was barely attached, held on by strips of muscle and sinew. Most shocking of all, there was clear evidence of severe internal bleeding, yet the human's blood pressure remained stable. "Run it again," she commanded. The second scan confirmed the first. Despite injuries that should have killed any known species within minutes, the human's vital signs were not only stable, but appeared to be slowly improving. The bleeding had stopped on its own. The fractured bones were somehow maintaining their basic structure despite the devastating damage. "Dr. Zephyra," called Nurse Thrix from across the room. The spider-like arachnoid was monitoring the human's brain activity. "The neural patterns are unlike anything in our database. The pain signals being generated should have caused immediate shock and unconsciousness, but look at this." The brain scan showed activity levels that defied explanation. Pain centers were active, certainly, but they were being actively suppressed by other regions. More incredibly, the scan revealed areas of the brain that were completely unknown to galactic medicine regions that seemed to be coordinating the body's response to trauma in ways that shouldn't be possible. "The human is conscious," Thrix continued, her voice filled with disbelief. "Not only conscious, but aware. The pain suppression appears to be voluntary." Dr. Zephyra moved closer to the human's head, studying the pale, dirt-streaked face. The eyes were closed, but she could see the rapid movement beneath the lids that indicated awareness. As she watched, those eyes slowly opened, revealing irises of an unusual brown color that seemed to hold depths she couldn't fathom. "Can you hear me?" she asked, her translator rendering her words in the standard human language. The human's lips moved slightly. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, but the words were clear. How bad is it?" The question sent a ripple of shock through the medical team. Here was a being who should be dead, asking about the extent of his injuries with what appeared to be clinical detachment. Dr. Zephyra found herself at a loss for words. "You've suffered severe trauma," she finally managed. "Multiple fractures, internal injuries, extensive tissue damage. By all medical knowledge, you should be." "Should be dead," the human finished for her. "Yeah, I figured." A slight smile played across his lips. "Name's Marcus Chen. I'm the mining foreman down on 47. Guess the safety protocols need some work." Dr. Zephyra stared at him in amazement. Not only was he conscious and coherent, but he was making what appeared to be humor about his situation. In her centuries of medical practice, she had never encountered anything like it. "Mr. Chen," she said carefully, "I need to understand what's happening to your body. Your injuries should have caused fatal shock, yet your systems appear to be compensating in ways we don't understand. Is this normal for your species?" Marcus considered this for a moment. "Define normal. I mean, I feel like I got hit by a freight transport, but I've been hurt worse." "Worse?" The word escaped Dr. Zephara's mandibles before she could stop it. "Mr. Chen, you have been crushed by 3 tons of metal. Your skeletal system has suffered massive trauma. How could you possibly have been injured worse than this?" "Military," Marcus said simply. "Did 3 tour in the Outer Rim conflicts before I took this mining job. Caught a plasma grenade with my back during the Battle of Kepler Station. Spent 4 months in a military hospital, but I walked out under my own power." The medical team exchanged glances. The Outer Rim conflicts were known throughout the galaxy as particularly brutal affairs, but they had been primarily between human factions. The idea that humans routinely survived injuries that would kill most other species was beginning to reshape their understanding of this relatively new addition to the galactic community. "Dr. Zephara," Nurse Thrix called out urgently, "you need to see this. The bone fragments, they're moving." Everyone turned to the main display screen, where a real-time image of Marcus's left leg showed the shattered bone pieces slowly shifting into alignment. It was subtle, barely perceptible, but undeniable. Somehow, the human's body was beginning to repair itself at a cellular level. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Quillen. "Bone regeneration on that scale requires weeks of treatment in our most advanced facilities. This is happening in real time." Dr. Zephara activated the deep tissue scanner, focusing on the areas of greatest damage. What she saw defied everything she knew about biology. At the cellular level, Marcus's body was a hive of activity. Stem cells were mobilizing at rates she had never seen. Damaged tissue was being broken down and rebuilt with remarkable efficiency. Most incredibly, the process appeared to be accelerating rather than slowing down. "Mr. Chen," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "how do you feel right now? Are you experiencing pain?" "Sure am," Marcus replied. "Feels like someone took a sledgehammer to every bone in my body, but it's manageable. I've learned to work through it." "Work through it?" Dr. Zephara couldn't hide her incredulity. "The pain signals we're reading should be incapacitating." "Pain's just your body's way of telling you something's wrong," Marcus explained matter-of-factly. "Since I already know I'm busted up, I don't need the reminder. Mind over matter, Doc. It's all about mind over matter." Dr. Zephara found herself questioning everything she had learned about pain response and consciousness. The idea that a being could simply choose to ignore pain signals that would overwhelm any other species' nervous system was revolutionary. Yet here was living proof lying on her examination table. "Doctor," interrupted Dr. Quillen, his skin now flashing a rapid purple that indicated extreme agitation. "I'm detecting massive protein synthesis throughout the patient's muscular system. The energy expenditure should be impossible to sustain, yet his metabolic indicators remain stable." "Where is the energy coming from?" Dr. Zephara demanded. "That's just it, I can't determine the source. His caloric intake over the past day, according to station records, was standard for a human of his size. Yet he's burning energy at rates that should require massive additional nutrition." As if summoned by their conversation about metabolism, Marcus's stomach chose that moment to emit a loud, rumbling growl. The sound was so incongruous in the high-tech medical bay that several staff members actually jumped. "Sorry about that," Marcus said with a sheepish grin. "Haven't eaten since this morning. Don't suppose you folks have anything that resembles food around here." Dr. Zephara stared at him. "Mr. Chen, you are currently undergoing what appears to be accelerated cellular regeneration. Your body is performing feats of biological engineering that should be impossible, and you're concerned about food." "Well, yeah, hard to heal up without fuel, plus I'm starving." The casual pragmatism of the response left the entire medical team speechless. Here was a being whose body was rewriting the rules of biology, and he was treating it like a minor inconvenience that required a sandwich. Dr. Zephara made a decision that would haunt and fascinate her for years to come. Instead of immediately beginning standard trauma protocols, she chose to observe. The human's condition was stabilizing on its own in ways that made external intervention not only unnecessary but potentially harmful. Better to document this unprecedented biological phenomenon. Nurse Thrix, begin comprehensive documentation. I want every cellular change recorded. Dr. Quillen, contact the xenobiology department. They need to see this. She turned back to Marcus. Mr. Chen, with your permission, we'd like to monitor your recovery process. What you're doing shouldn't be possible, and we need to understand how. Sure thing, Doc. Just promise me one thing: when you figure out what makes humans tick, don't go spreading it around to the wrong people. We've got enough enemies out here as it is. The comment was made lightly, but it carried an undertone that made Dr. Zephyra pause. The implications of what she was witnessing were staggering. If humans could routinely survive injuries that would kill other species, if they could consciously override pain responses that would incapacitate even the hardiest warriors, if their bodies could repair themselves at rates that defied medical science, what did that mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? As she watched Marcus Chen's broken body slowly but steadily begin to mend itself, Dr. Zephyra realized that her simple medical case had become something much larger. She wasn't just treating a patient anymore. She was documenting the first scientific proof of something that would change how every species in the galaxy viewed humanity. The question that had started as medical curiosity was becoming something more profound. What kind of metal were humans forged from? And perhaps more importantly, what did it mean for everyone else that such beings now walked among the stars? As the hours passed and Marcus continued his impossible recovery, Dr. Zephyra found herself both amazed and deeply troubled. Amazing because she was witnessing a revolution in biological science. Troubled because she was beginning to understand that humanity's reputation in the galaxy might need a significant revision. The mining accident on level 47 had become much more than a simple industrial mishap. It had become a window into capabilities that most species would find either inspiring or terrifying, depending on which side of human friendship they found themselves. Dr. Zephyra had seen many things in her long medical career, but nothing had prepared her for the events of the following day. Marcus Chen's recovery was proceeding at a pace that defied every medical textbook in the galaxy. By the 6th hour after his arrival, the compound fractures in his legs had begun to show signs of actual bone fusion. By the 12th hour, the internal bleeding had not only stopped, but the damaged organs were showing signs of regeneration that should have taken weeks with their most advanced treatments. The medical bay had become a hub of activity as word spread throughout the station. Dr. Vextai, the head of the xenobiology department, arrived with a team of researchers who had never seen anything like the readings they were getting from the human patient. Commander Thorax of station security appeared with questions about what this meant for human capabilities. Even the station administrator, a normally reclusive ethereal named Luminos, materialized to observe the unprecedented medical phenomenon. The bone density readings are off the charts, Dr. Vextai reported, his multiple eyes focused on a holographic display showing Marcus's skeletal system. Not only are the fractures healing, but the new bone growth is actually denser and stronger than the original structure. It's as if the trauma is triggering some kind of biological upgrade. Dr. Zephyra watched the readouts with growing fascination and concern. Show me the muscle tissue analysis. The hologram shifted to display the muscular system, revealing something even more extraordinary. The damaged muscles weren't simply healing, they were rebuilding themselves with improved efficiency. Fiber density was increasing. Neural pathways were being optimized. Even the cardiovascular system was showing improvements, with new capillary networks forming to support the enhanced muscle tissue. "Doctor," called Nurse Thrix from beside Marcus's bed, "the patient is awake and requesting to speak with you." Dr. Zephyra approached the bed where Marcus was now sitting upright, a feat that should have been impossible given his injuries. His color had improved dramatically, and while he still bore the marks of his trauma, he looked remarkably alert for someone who had been crushed under 3 tons of metal just 24 hours earlier. "Morning, Doc," Marcus said with a smile. "Thanks for the food earlier, made a real difference in how I'm feeling. Got a question for you, though." "What is it, Mr. Chen? When can I get back to work?" The question sent a wave of shocked silence through the assembled medical staff. Dr. Zephyra felt her mandibles click involuntarily. "Mr. Chen, you suffered injuries that should have killed you. Even with your remarkable recovery rate, you need weeks of rehabilitation before you could consider returning to any kind of physical activity. Marcus tested the range of motion in his previously shattered left arm, flexing the fingers and rotating the wrist. While there was still obvious stiffness, the limb was functional in a way that defied medical explanation. I appreciate the concern, Doc, but I feel pretty good. Sore, sure, but nothing I can't handle. And the mining crew is short-handed with me out of commission. Mr. Chen, interjected Dr. Vextai, approaching with obvious scientific excitement, would you be willing to undergo some additional testing? What we're observing in your recovery has implications that extend far beyond medicine. We need to understand the mechanisms behind your species' healing capabilities. Sure, I guess. What kind of testing? Cellular analysis, genetic mapping, stress response evaluation. We want to understand how your body is accomplishing what should be biologically impossible. Marcus shrugged. As long as it doesn't interfere with getting back to work, we've got quotas to meet and the crew depends on me. Dr. Zephyra found herself amazed once again by the humans' priorities. Despite having survived what amounted to an execution by crushing, Marcus's primary concern was returning to his dangerous job to help his colleagues. It spoke to a level of dedication and resilience that went beyond mere physical capabilities. Mr. Chen, she said carefully, before we discuss your return to work, I need to ask you some questions about your species. What you're demonstrating here, this rapid healing, this pain tolerance, this casual attitude toward severe trauma, is this typical for humans? Marcus considered the question thoughtfully. I suppose it depends on what you mean by typical. I mean, not everyone would have walked away from what happened to me. But humans are pretty tough as a rule. We've had to be. What do you mean by that? Earth isn't exactly a garden world, Doc. Never has been. Our planet spends most of its time trying to kill us in one way or another. Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, ice ages, plague, predators, you name it. The ones who couldn't adapt died out. The rest of us got really good at surviving things that should kill us. Dr. Vextai was recording every word. You're saying that your healing abilities are the result of evolutionary pressure. Among other things, yeah. Plus, humans have always been a bit crazy when it comes to survival. We're the species that saw a mountain and decided to climb it just to see what was on the other side. We looked at the ocean and said, I bet there's something interesting at the bottom. We figured out how to make fire, then how to make bigger fires, then how to make fires so big they could propel us into space. But the cellular regeneration we're observing, Dr. Zephyra pressed, this goes beyond simple toughness. Your body is performing feats of biological engineering that our most advanced medical technology struggles to achieve. Marcus nodded. Sure, but think about what that means from an evolutionary standpoint. If you're a species that routinely gets banged up doing stupid, dangerous things because you're curious about what's over the next hill, you'd better get really good at putting yourself back together. The ones who couldn't adapt to that lifestyle died young and didn't pass on their genes. The implications of his words settled over the medical team like a heavy blanket. Dr. Zephyra began to understand that they weren't just dealing with an individual human's remarkable recovery. They were getting their first glimpse into the biological capabilities of an entire species that had evolved under conditions most other races would consider a death sentence. Mr. Chen, Commander Thorax spoke for the first time, his gravelly voice cutting through the medical discussions. You mentioned military service earlier. In your experience, how common are these healing capabilities among human soldiers? Marcus's expression grew more serious. Pretty common, sir. Military training pushes you to understand your limits, then teaches you to go beyond them. Most humans who serve learn to function with injuries that would sideline other species. It's not that we don't feel pain, we just don't let it stop us from doing what needs to be done. Can you give us a specific example? Marcus was quiet for a moment, clearly considering how much to share. During the Battle of Kepler Station, my unit held a defensive position for 18 hours against overwhelming odds. By the end of the engagement, every one of us was wounded, some pretty severely. But we held the line because retreating wasn't an option. After the battle, the medical team couldn't understand how we'd remained combat effective with our injuries. Dr. Zephyra felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. The Battle of Kepler Station was known throughout the galaxy as one of the most brutal conflicts in recent memory. The casualty reports had been staggering, but they had assumed the high numbers were due to the intensity of the fighting, not because humans routinely fought while severely wounded. "How many human soldiers were involved in that battle?" Commander Thorax asked. "About 50,000 in the main engagement, maybe another 20,000 in support roles." The numbers sent a shock through the assembled group. They were discussing a species that could field armies of beings capable of fighting through injuries that would incapacitate other warriors. The strategic implications were staggering. "Mr. Chen," Dr. Vextai interjected, his scientific excitement barely contained, "would you be willing to demonstrate some of these capabilities under controlled conditions? Nothing dangerous, just some basic stress tests to help us understand the limits of human physiology." "I suppose, but I should warn you, humans don't really have limits in the way you might think. We have breaking points, sure, but they're usually a lot further out than most species expect." Dr. Zephyra made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences. "I want to document this properly. Mr. Chen, would you be willing to participate in a comprehensive study of human physiology? With your cooperation, we could learn things that might revolutionize medicine across the galaxy." Marcus nodded. "Sure, Doc, but I've got one condition." "What's that?" "When you publish your findings, I want you to include something important about humans. We might be tough, but that's not what makes us dangerous. What makes us dangerous is that we care about each other. That toughness isn't just for our own survival, it's so we can protect the people we care about. Remember that when you're writing your reports." The comment hung in the air like a challenge. Dr. Zephyra realized that Marcus wasn't just talking about individual resilience. He was talking about a species-wide characteristic that went beyond mere physical capabilities. Humans didn't just survive, they survived for each other. As the testing began in earnest, Dr. Zephyra found herself documenting capabilities that redefined her understanding of what was possible in biological systems. Marcus could maintain conscious control over autonomic functions that should have been entirely involuntary. His pain threshold was so high that their equipment couldn't reliably measure it. His healing rate continued to accelerate as his body adapted to the testing protocols. But perhaps most remarkably, throughout every test and procedure, Marcus maintained the same calm, pragmatic attitude he had shown from the beginning. When pain levels reached points that should have caused unconsciousness, he simply noted them and continued. When stress tests pushed his systems to what should have been breaking points, he adapted and overcame. "Dr. Nurse Thrix reported after the third day of testing, we're not finding limits. Every time we think we've reached a boundary, the patient simply adjusts and continues. His baselines keep shifting upward." Dr. Zephyra studied the accumulated data with growing amazement and concern. They weren't just documenting the capabilities of one exceptional human. They were mapping the biological potential of an entire species that had never been properly understood. The mining accident had revealed something that would change the galactic community's perception of humanity forever. The question was no longer what kind of metal humans were forged from. It was whether the rest of the galaxy was prepared for the implications of sharing space with beings who seemed to redefine the possible with every breath they took. 2 weeks after the mining accident that had brought Marcus Chen to her medical bay, Dr. Zephyra found herself standing before the Galactic Medical Council, preparing to present findings that would reshape interspecies medicine forever. The data she carried represented the most comprehensive study of human physiology ever conducted, and its implications reached far beyond the medical field. The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species, their various forms of attention focused on her presentation. Dr. Zephyra activated the holographic display system and began what she knew would be one of the most important presentations of her career. "Honored colleagues," she began, 3 weeks ago, a human mining foreman named Marcus Chen was brought to Nexus Station's emergency medical facility following what should have been a fatal industrial accident. What we discovered during his treatment challenges everything we thought we knew about the biological capabilities of the human species. The first hologram showed Marcus's condition upon arrival, the twisted wreckage of a body that had been crushed under 3 tons of metal. Gasps and clicks of dismay echoed through the chamber as the assembled medical professionals absorbed the extent of the injuries. By all established medical knowledge, this patient should have died within minutes of sustaining these injuries. Instead, he remained conscious, coherent, and within 72 hours was requesting to return to work. Dr. Zefara brought up the next series of images, showing the progression of Marcus's healing over the first week. The transformation was so dramatic that several council members requested verification that the images were of the same individual. The healing rate we observed exceeds anything in our medical databases by factors ranging from 50 to 300%, depending on the type of tissue involved. But speed of recovery was only the beginning of what we discovered. She activated a molecular-level display showing cellular activity during the healing process. Human cellular regeneration operates on principles we are still struggling to understand. When damaged, human cells don't simply repair themselves, they improve themselves. Bone density increases at fracture sites. Muscle tissue rebuilds with enhanced efficiency. Neural pathways optimize their connections. The human body appears to treat trauma as an opportunity for biological upgrades. Dr. Kexmer of the Crystalline Collective raised a limb for attention. Dr. Zefara, are you suggesting that humans benefit from injury? Not exactly benefit, but they certainly adapt to it in ways that make them more resilient to similar future injuries. But perhaps more significantly, they appear capable of consciously controlling biological processes that should be entirely automatic. She brought up readouts showing Marcus's pain response during testing. This human demonstrated the ability to voluntarily suppress pain signals that should have overwhelmed any nervous system, not through medication or external intervention, but through conscious mental control. When we asked him about it, he described it as mind over matter and indicated that this was a common human capability. The chamber erupted in discussion as the implications sank in. Species that had evolved with automatic pain responses designed to protect them from further injury couldn't conceive of simply choosing to ignore such signals. Dr. Zefara waited for quiet before continuing. But physical capabilities were only part of what we learned. Throughout his recovery, Mr. Chen demonstrated psychological characteristics that may be even more significant than his biological ones. She brought up recordings from her conversations with Marcus. When asked about his concerns during treatment, he consistently prioritized the welfare of his work crew and the mining operation over his own recovery. When we offered him the finest accommodations the station could provide, he requested that we instead check on the other miners who had been injured in the same accident, despite the fact that their injuries were minor compared to his own. This pattern of behavior led us to investigate human social structures and military history. What we found explains much about how humans have achieved their current status in galactic affairs, despite being relative newcomers to interstellar civilization. The display shifted to show historical data from human conflicts and disaster responses. Humans routinely risk their own survival to protect others, even when the rational choice would be self-preservation. During the Kepler station battle, human soldiers continued fighting while sustaining injuries that would have incapacitated warriors from other species. But they weren't fighting for territory or resources, they were fighting to protect civilians and allies. Dr. Vextai, who had assisted with the study, added his own observations. We discovered that human pack bonding extends far beyond their own species. Mr. Chen expressed genuine concern for the welfare of non-human colleagues he had only known for a few months. This level of cross-species loyalty is unprecedented in our experience. The council buzzed with discussion as the broader implications became clear. They weren't just dealing with a physically resilient species. They were dealing with beings who combined that resilience with an almost irrational commitment to protecting others. Dr. Zefara, interrupted Commander Vorth of the Galactic Defense Force, his attendance at a medical conference now making more sense. What are the military implications of your findings? Dr. Zefara had been dreading this question. Commander, I'm a medical professional, not a military analyst. But I will say this, any species that can field soldiers capable of fighting effectively while severely wounded, who can consciously override biological responses that would incapacitate others, and who will sacrifice themselves without hesitation to protect allies. Such a species would be formidable in conflict. And equally valuable as allies, added Dr. Quillen, speaking for the first time during the presentation. The same characteristics that would make humans dangerous enemies make them incredibly reliable friends. Dr. Zefara nodded. This brings me to the most important part of our findings. When we asked Mr. Chen about the source of human resilience, he told us something that I believe is crucial for the galactic community to understand. She activated the final recording from their conversations with Marcus. His voice filled the chamber. Humans aren't tough because we want to be superior to other species. We're tough because our world spent millions of years trying to kill us, and we survived by taking care of each other. Every adaptation, every capability we've developed, it's all about making sure we can protect the people we care about. We didn't evolve to be warriors, we evolved to be guardians. The recording ended, leaving the chamber in contemplative silence. Dr. Zefara concluded her presentation with a personal observation that had haunted her throughout the study. Colleagues, we began this investigation trying to understand what kind of metal humans were forged from. What we discovered is that they weren't forged from metal at all. They were forged by adversity, shaped by loss, and tempered by their refusal to let others suffer what they have suffered. Their greatest strength isn't their ability to endure pain or heal from injuries. It's their willingness to endure pain so others don't have to. In the weeks following the presentation, Dr. Zefara's findings were distributed throughout the galactic medical community and beyond. The study of human physiology became a priority research area, with implications for everything from emergency medicine to military tactics. But perhaps more importantly, it changed how other species viewed their human colleagues. The beings who had seemed unremarkable when they first joined the galactic community were revealed to be something far more significant, a species that had spent eons learning to survive the impossible and had chosen to use that ability in service of others. Marcus Chen returned to his mining duties, completely recovered and characteristically unconcerned with the scientific revolution his accident had sparked. When asked by reporters about his role in advancing galactic understanding of human capabilities, he simply shrugged and said, "Just doing my job. Someone's got to keep the mines running." Dr. Zefara kept in touch with him, partly for ongoing research purposes, but mostly because she had developed a deep respect for the unassuming human who had revolutionized her understanding of what was possible in biological systems. During one of their conversations, she asked him if he understood the impact his case had had on interspecies relations. "I think so," Marcus replied thoughtfully. "People are starting to understand that humans aren't trying to show off or prove anything. We're just trying to do our part and look out for each other. If that impresses folks, great. If it scares them, well, hopefully they'll realize they don't need to be scared as long as they're not trying to hurt anyone we care about." The simple wisdom of his response encapsulated everything Dr. Zefara had learned during her study. Humans weren't forged from metal. They were forged from determination, compassion, and an absolute refusal to give up on each other. In a galaxy often divided by competition and mistrust, they offered something different, the promise that some beings would always choose to stand between others and harm, no matter what the cost to themselves. As Dr. Zefara filed her final report on the Chen case, she realized that the mining accident had revealed something more valuable than any mineral deposit. It had revealed that in the vast and often hostile galaxy, there was at least one species that had learned to turn survival into an art form and protection of others into a sacred duty. The medical bay had returned to its normal routine, but Dr. Zefara knew that nothing would ever be quite the same. Every time she treated a patient, she remembered the human who had redefined the possible simply by refusing to stay broken. Every time she saw humans working alongside other species throughout the station, she understood that she was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, a people who had evolved to endure anything and had chosen to use that gift in service of others. The question of what kind of metal humans were forged from had been answered, but the answer had revealed questions far more profound. If humans could routinely accomplish the impossible, if they could override their own biological limitations through sheer will, if they would sacrifice everything to protect others, what did that mean for the future of galactic civilization? As she watched Marcus Chen return to his dangerous work with the same calm dedication he had shown throughout his recovery, Dr. Zefara realized that the galaxy was about to find out. And for the first time since joining the interstellar community, she felt genuinely optimistic about what that future might hold.